All right, guys, welcome to the Outdoors with Rich. Today I'm going to talk about a ferro cerium rod. Kind of tough to say, so let's just say ferro rod. That's what most people call it. This is the one I have. It's wore down a little bit. It's a 1/2 inch. I'll show you up close. What I'm finding is, as I get out and I do more bushcraft and I get in the woods, or I get around a couple other people and we're camping or hiking and we pull out our ferro rods, I think what happens is most people avoid them. They see people camping with them, and I got a loud bird next to me. It's beautiful, but it's kind of loud. They'll get their ferro rods out and they'll try to use them, and if they're not really throwing those big spray of sparks like they see others doing, I think they tend to kind of put it back in their pocket and go to the Bic lighter or go to matches. And what I want to show you a little bit about what I learned, which can make all the difference in being able to effectively use your ferro rod versus kind of be, I won't say afraid of it, but just deterred from it. You know, only in an emergency will I use it, because every time I've tried it, you know, it hasn't worked great. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a tip on how I think you'll be able to use your ferro rod and strike with it and light a fire in 1, 2, 3 strikes every time. The first challenge for me was, and these come, this particular one's got a hole in it. I'll show it more closely. This particular one came all black paint, and I started using it, and I used a number of different strikers, different instruments to actually strike the rod with. And what I found is it was getting these ripples in it, these grooves. And then when I felt like, okay, I really want to get proficient with this ferro rod and I want to use it and I want to practice with it and get good at it, I found it was just making this raking sound, and it's got these grooves all along it. So what I did is I grinded those down. Let me show you what I did. I'm kind of twisting it. It's fairly smooth. But as I was mentioning, this morning when I got up and said, okay, I'm going to master the ferro rod, probably not master it, but get a lot better at it, more proficient, I decided to take a grinder like this. Now I have an air compressor, so this one's air powered, and it's got this is about 40 grit, or at least it was when I started out. And I literally, now you can get these, you know, get an electric one, you can do it by hand, but I literally put this on and I twisted my ferro rod to get those grooves out of it. I definitely don't recommend using this, obviously, unless you have those grooves. It takes the life out of the ferro rod. I got a 2-pack of these. I gave one to my son, and when I looked at it and looked at the diameter of mine's already wore down. That's simply because I didn't know what I was doing. I got those little ridges in it, those little bumps, and I needed to do something about it. So I believe I have the problem fixed. I put this on here. This is not a metallic sanding paper, it's a sanding disc, and it did throw some sparks, but it wasn't crazy. It didn't blow up. It just kind of like, almost like grinding something metal, and I was able to kind of go around this, you know, with the power and actually get these grooves out of there. I want to show you one subtle difference that I think is going to help you out a lot on being able to, instead of just kind of have this as back of mind for your fire starting purposes, as almost maybe even your go-to. Every time you strike this, yeah, it takes a little bit off, but man, this is going to last a lot longer than a Bic lighter. Save the fuel in your Bic lighter for a rainy day, especially if you're out in the woods. Save the Bic lighter and use this if you can. I think with anything else, it just requires practice. And what I found is one subtle difference in how I'm holding my instrument, or how I'm pushing my instrument across this rod, made all the difference for me. So the idea about these videos, right, is we teach each other. I learned a lot by watching others, but I didn't get this. It took practice for me. All I see is they're using it and sparks are flying and they're starting these fires, and 1, 2, and I'm like, you know, I'm looking back at the videos and wondering if they clipped it out and edited it, which I've done. You guys have seen me start some fires. And actually, let me have a little fun with this for a second. Some of the fires, this is just me being transparent, that you've seen me start, I scraped this rod, I scraped this rod, I scraped this rod many times. Then I turned the camera off. Sometimes I felt like throwing the camera. And then right when I got it and it looked all good, oh, there's some good scrapes, and I got the fire going, I'd only put that in the video. And I thought, you know, that's not cool. I mean, it's real, but, you know, and I didn't think you guys wanted to see me scraping over and over and over. But if you're going through that, let me show you this one subtle difference. Now, I'll show you this little tool I'm using. I'm not saying to go out and get one of these. This was 10 bucks at the local hardware store. And what it is it's got a, it's actually a tool for sharpening, I think, garden tools. It's made by Corona, that's the brand, but it's got a little bit different material here on the end. And this is probably like 1095 carbon steel, I'm guessing, maybe a little harder. It's no different than those of you who want to use the back squared blade of your bushcraft knife. So if you've got a 1095 steel or some other not a stainless steel knife, and you want to use the back of your knife, I think the same concept, as long as it's got a good 90-degree angle. It can't be rounded. Okay, I use a Mora Companion for my bushcraft knife, and it's a stainless steel, and it just doesn't give me what I need to strike my ferro rod. The reason I have this is I started off with one of the little strikers that looks like kind of a piece of a hacksaw blade. It's got teeth on one side. Some of them has a little cutout that fits your ferro rod. Anyway, in hindsight, I think one of those would be just fine. I threw mine out and I went to this because I was having trouble. Now that I feel like I got a grip on it, I could probably go back to one of those, and it'd be lighter than this and smaller and probably make more sense. So I'm not saying go out and buy one of these. This is just what I have now and what I'm going to show you and what I've been carrying. So here's the big difference. I'm going to flip this around and show you this way. Obviously I'm not striking this towards me, but just to show you the visual. If I were going this way, before I was using it probably at an angle kind of like this, which I would say, what's that, maybe a 45-degree angle. So when I was going this way with it, I was leaving those bumps in it. You can still kind of hear and see a little bit of those bumps that I didn't quite sand out. I didn't feel like I wanted to take much more off my ferro rod. But I was going like that. I tried it like this, and I tried it like that. But I was always trying it at a 45-degree angle. What I found was a magical difference is when I lay that much further down and get almost like a 15-degree angle. So I'm going to show you this way. Almost like this, where that blade is cutting in like this. Not like this as I was doing it in the past, but laying down. So to strike the rod, I'd come up to it and I'd give it a couple, you know, get it kind of shined up a little bit, and then I'd pull it. And I'm making strikes consistently almost every time. I feel like as long as I have a right tinder bundle, that I could walk up to it and within 2 or 3, maybe 1 or 2 scrapes of my ferro rod, that I'd be golden and be able to start a fire. So let's put this to the test. Now before I show you my tinder bundle and show you how we're going to light a fire in just a couple strokes of the ferro rod, I was reminded of one more thing that I feel like I was doing wrong. I was so excited to, let's see these sparks fly, let's make a fire, that I wouldn't take the time and actually create a proper tinder bundle. You know, enough items in there that is going to actually catch. One of my big go-tos for making a fire with a ferro rod is cheating a little bit. I do bring a little canister, and I carry with me about 8 or 9 cotton balls soaked in Vaseline, petroleum jelly. I mean, once one little spark even gets close to that thing, it lights, and then the rest of, and then it gives it a few seconds. The Vaseline's, the cotton ball will work by itself. The Vaseline actually causes it to be more like a candle. It gives it a slower reaction. But that's my cheat, if you will. They weigh nothing. I got them in a little can, about 1 inch tall, about 3 inches in diameter. I pack about 8 or 9, and I carry those with me. Always one strike of the ferro rod and boom, those things are going. But let's do it the right way, and let's gather up some stuff. I'm going to go right here in my backyard, gather up some stuff for the tinder bundle. Let's make a fire. Well, there you have the importance of using a proper tinder bundle. As you notice, I was just scraping my rod a little bit just to kind of get it ready, just to get a clean surface, and then I was really gonna throw the sparks, and just that little bit of activity actually caught my tinder bundle. It took off just with a little bit of those warm-up strokes. It was kind of getting going, and it threw some sparks at it, and it caught. Let's see if we can light it again, going through the full process. There you go. That one difference of laying that blade down a little bit more will make all the difference in the world when you're lighting your fires. Guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me today while we learn a little bit more about a ferro rod and maybe a couple techniques on how to make that a better experience, how to start a fire a little bit quicker. I'm fairly new to all this. I started getting into bushcraft. I've never used a ferro rod in my life prior to about 6 months ago. And I consider it a privilege to be able to share what I've learned with you. The bottom line is, I learned from watching YouTube videos. I learned from going out in the bush with other people, with other friends, and seeing them do it, their videos. I learned the same way you're learning. So if I can cut a few minutes off, or one day of frustration here, or a segment of frustration there, I feel like I've done my part. Thank you for watching How to Properly Strike a Ferro Rod with the Outdoors with Rich. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Give it the thumbs up. Give a comment if there's something else. Maybe you do it a different way. Maybe there's something else you want to see on the channel. Let me know. I'm having fun with this, and I hope you guys are too. God bless.